Airbnb and UK councils are now sharing data. So here's what legit hosts actually need to know, okay? I've seen a lot of people panicking online. Most of them have absolutely nothing to worry about. Here's what's actually happening and what you need to check today. So Airbnb just handed the UK councils a database for the listings. So the actual story here is that it's the first of the kind data sharing agreement between Airbnb and the Cabinet Office's Public Sector Fraud Authority and participating UK local authorities, cancels across social housing records against Airbnb listings to identify illegal subletting. Okay, so an estimated 5,800 social homes in the UK are suspected of illegally subletting. Okay, these houses are obviously provided by the council for people who can't afford to rent a property, can't afford to buy a property. So instead of them being homeless on the street, we have a council house system in the UK where councils step in and, do reduced rent to people, or in some cases completely free, and they provide them a home. What they don't want is these people then going on and renting out the property, because that house could have housed someone that actually needs it, somebody in need that needs a roof over their head. It's not being, it's not designed to be used as an asset on the taxpayer's expense for other people to make money. So that's what the actual story is. That's what they're actually looking, okay? Each case is costing the taxpayers an estimated £78,300 a month based off the figures. Early results have identified at least 470 potential fraud cases that are already getting investigated because of this. And the data is covering 450,000 properties in the participating areas, which is basically the whole country. If you get confirmed as a fraudster, you're facing evictions, fines, or in the worst cases, 2 years imprisonment. But if you know anything about the UK and the prison system right now, nobody's going to be going to prison for this. They can't put anybody in prison at the moment. So you're looking at mainly eviction. The money's probably already been spent, so they can't even fine you. That's the actual story. Okay. So what's this in plain English? As I've said before, the council checking their list of social houses, council houses, tenants against Airbnb listings and just cross-referencing them basically. So people who are got a council house that's been provided by the government and then Airbnb in it, they're helping to find fraud. Okay, this is not a general audit of hosts. So if you're doing rent to rent or you're doing management fee, they're not cracking down on rental arbitrage. There's not a registration enforcement mechanism. You're not being forced to register at the council yet, although that might be coming down the line. So the headline that Airbnb is sharing data with councils, the stories are councils are looking for fraud. So my mentees, you guys watching this video, unless you're planning on taking your council house and turning it into an Airbnb to make a bit of extra money when you're not there or whatever, even then it might be, I feel like that's kind of harsh if they're giving you a house, they rented it to you and you're paying the council rent and they're not letting you Airbnb it for 1 weekend a year or whatever. But I think that, that's a very minor case. I think they're looking for major cases here. So you've got nothing really to be worried about, okay? The panic online is from people who don't understand what they're reading, okay? What is being targeted are the council houses and social houses and subletting council-owned properties. This is tenancy fraud. It's against the tenancy agreement. That's going to prohibit subletting. The tenant is occupying a publicly funded home. They are no longer living and profiteering on the taxpayer expense. And again, like I said, that place could be used for someone else. They're just cross-referencing everything. Okay, so what do rental arbitrage operators need to do? Private rental arbitrage holders are holding lease on privately owned properties. These properties that you're getting are privately owned, and you need to make sure, because sometimes you'll find someone who's maybe posing as a private landlord saying they own the property, but maybe it's council owned. So that's what you've got to be careful of here. You need to make sure the landlord's not the council. The actual owner of the property is not the council. The property is not social housing, and the agreement documented is signed and legal. It says in your contract you're allowed to sublet. As long as you're renting off somebody and they've put in their contract that you're allowed to sublet, you're protected, okay? Even if it is a social house and you've rented it, not knowing it's a social house, and they've put in the contract that they've subletted it, that's an illegal agreement. Okay, so you're probably going to lose the property, but they're not going to come after you and come after the person that's pretended to be the landlord or pretended that it's their property that they own. So you're okay, okay? There's no cross-reference between the private rental agreements and the council social housing database because private properties are not in that database. But like I say, some hosts are doing this, okay? And some hosts genuinely should be paying more attention, okay? Social housing tenants, subletting is the target of this. And if you are doing that, you're going to lose the property. Okay, so you need to be doing your due diligence with the contract to make sure that the person claiming to be the landlord is the actual owner and that you have actual permission. Okay, private tenants without written permission, they're not currently the target of this legislation, but this thing signals a broader direction of travel that the infrastructure platform to authority database sharing now exists. Okay, so this could expand. This could expand because obviously the councils will know, you know, the land registry and stuff knows who owns what. So if they use the land registry and then cross-reference it with Airbnb, which is something that this kind of indicates the way that the world's moving in the UK right now, you've got to be aware of that. Operators with verbal permission only. I'm not having anyone that's only has verbal permission to Airbnb. You need to have written contracts, guys, okay? People that are doing that aren't watching this video anyway. And my mentees, like, they wouldn't be my mentee if they were like that stupid to do something like that. So one line in the contract, that's all that separates protected from exposed, okay? So you need to have a line like this. The tenant is permitted to use the property as a short-term letting business, including listing on the property on platforms such as Airbnb, Booking.com, VRBWO, for the duration of the agreement, the landlord provides explicit consent for use. Single line like that, boom, you're flying, okay? You're allowed to do that. And why the exact wording matters here is because the clause is naming short-term letting, it's naming the platforms, it's writing explicit consent, okay? And this all needs to be signed. Not an email, not in WhatsApp, like replying signed, you know, service like DocuSign, Panda Docs, physically print it out and have a written signature, verify that that person has the right to do the document. Okay, so where this needs to sit in the main tenancy agreement, not a side letter, this needs to be a proper paragraph, you know, a special section that's labeled, and it's going to give you can't just have this buried at the bottom, okay? We want this explicit, very obvious in the contract, so you can just point to it and be like, look, here's what my contract says. What happens without it? A landlord could terminate the lease for breach of agreement. So don't be signing any contracts that aren't giving you explicit permission to rent the property and do short-term lets, subletting, Airbnb. This is the standard, guys, so just make sure you hit all of these and you have nothing to worry about. Written landlord agreement with explicit short let permission, specialist short let insurance, limited company registration, a safety certificate that's current, and just platform transparency, so all the information on the platform is accurate, so there's no misrepresentation. The walls aren't closing in on legitimate hosts, they're closing in on the competition, okay? So you're gonna have fewer illegal listings, more market share. The landlords are gonna become more receptive. The trust in the category improves, okay? So this could actually benefit Airbnb, make Airbnb more trustful platform. It's going to reduce your competition because people shouldn't be competing with you, etc. So don't look at this as a bad thing. If you're a legitimate host, which if you're following me and you're working with me, you're going to be a legitimate host. So you've got nothing to worry about. So do this day, find the agreement, search for these words and act on what you find, okay? Make sure that sort of language is in your contracts. The headline might sound like the walls are closing on Airbnb house, but they're closing in on people who were never operating the property. You've got nothing to worry about. I've seen these headlines, people are getting worried about it. You're completely fine. So if you want to know more about contracts and stuff, drop me a comment. I can give you some templates, you know, join the Host Handbook. There we have a legal contract generator, which shows you how everything's structured and sorts everything out for you. Subscribe, hit the bell notification. I'm going to be making lots more videos. You let me know what you want me to talk about. I'll jump on here and talk about it. I'm a very experienced host, been doing this for nearly 5 years. Okay, I've got properties all over the UK. Okay, and I have a free school community as well, where I break down how to start from no properties to building an entire portfolio of Airbnbs without actually having to buy them, not needing massive deposits or mortgages. So there's so much information in there, talking about things from like cleaning checklists to acquiring the properties. Everything is there. And if you want to work with me one-to-one, reach out with me on Instagram and I can help work together in a collaborative way, and we can build your Airbnb business start to finish. So I hope you learned a lot in this video, and see you in the next.